You pick it up without thinking. You don't even know why you did it. 1 second your hand was empty, and the next, it was holding your phone, and your thumb was already moving. You didn't decide to do that. Something else did. That moment happens to you dozens of times a day, maybe hundreds, and most of the time, you have no memory of initiating it. You just find yourself there, mid-scroll, with no clear idea of how you arrived. That isn't a coincidence. That isn't weak willpower. That is your brain doing exactly what it was built to do, and being exploited for it in ways your ancestors could never have imagined. Here's what's actually happening inside your skull every time you reach for that screen. Your brain is ancient. The part of it that drives compulsive behavior is not the sleek, rational, prefrontal cortex you use to make plans and write emails. It's a much older system buried deep in the center of your skull, sometimes called the mesolimbic pathway. This is the dopamine system. And it was not designed for the 21st century. It was designed for a world where finding food, water, a mate, or new information about your environment was genuinely difficult. A world where the search itself was a matter of survival. Dopamine is not the pleasure chemical. That's the first thing almost everyone gets wrong. Neuroscientist Kent Berridge has spent decades studying this distinction at the University of Michigan, and his research separates the experience of wanting from the experience of liking. Dopamine drives wanting. It's the craving, the reaching, the anticipation. The actual pleasure, that's a different system entirely, using different chemicals, firing in different places. Dopamine doesn't reward you for finding the thing. It compels you to keep searching for it. That distinction matters enormously, because what your phone triggers is not satisfaction. It's the endless loop of seeking. Every time you pick it up, your dopamine system lights up, not because it expects joy, but because it expects possibility. Maybe something new is there. Maybe something important arrived. Maybe something funny. Something alarming. Something that means you matter to someone. The brain doesn't know. And that uncertainty, that is the key. Psychologist B.F. Skinner discovered this in the middle of the 20th century, studying pigeons and levers. When a lever delivered a food pellet every single time, the pigeon pressed it steadily and then stopped when it was full. When the lever delivered food randomly, sometimes yes, sometimes no, the pigeon pressed it obsessively, almost without stopping. The unpredictable reward created a compulsion the predictable one never could. Skinner called it a variable ratio reinforcement schedule. You know it is your notification feed. Every time you open your phone, the reward is variable. Sometimes there's a message that matters. Sometimes there's nothing. Sometimes there's something that makes you laugh. Sometimes something that makes your stomach drop. Your brain cannot predict which one it will find. And that unpredictability is not a flaw in the system you're using. It is the system. It was engineered to feel exactly this way. Tristan Harris, a former design ethicist at Google, has spoken openly about the internal frameworks Silicon Valley used to maximize this effect. The infinite scroll was not an accident of good engineering. It removed the natural stopping point, the bottom of the page, that would otherwise tell your brain the search was over. Autoplay removed the moment of decision between videos. Notification badges turned your phone into a beacon that called to the seeking brain, promising variable rewards all day, every day from inside your pocket. Your brain was shaped over hundreds of thousands of years to respond to novelty. In the ancestral environment, new information meant survival. A strange sound in the grass, a shift in the weather, a new face at the edge of camp. Ignoring novelty could get you killed. Attending to it kept you alive. So your brain built a powerful drive toward anything new. Researchers call it the novelty bias, and it lives in the same dopamine circuits your phone is activating right now. The problem is that your phone offers an essentially infinite stream of novelty. Every scroll produces a new image, a new thought, a new face, a new piece of information. The seeking brain was never designed to encounter a source of novelty that does not run out. In the ancestral world, you'd scan the savanna, find no threats, and your brain would quiet. There was an end to the search. Now there is no end. The stream just keeps going. And so the seeking never stops. Neuroscientist Anna Lembke at Stanford, who directs the Addiction Medicine Dual Diagnosis Clinic, has written about how the brain responds to this constant stimulation by downregulating its own dopamine receptors. When dopamine floods your system repeatedly, the brain compensates. It becomes less sensitive. The same hit that once felt satisfying begins to feel flat. So you need more. You scroll longer. You check more often. The baseline shifts, and the ordinary moments of your life, sitting quietly, waiting in line, existing without input, start to feel unbearable because your dopamine system is now calibrated for constant stimulation. Silence feels like deprivation. This is not a metaphor. The neurological mechanism behind compulsive phone use overlaps significantly with the mechanisms behind substance addiction. The same pathways, the same compensatory downregulation, the same craving-seeking loop that never resolves into true satisfaction. You aren't checking your phone because you enjoy it. You're checking it because your brain has learned that checking is how you temporarily quiet a craving it also created. And here's the part that almost no one talks about. The content almost doesn't matter. You can pick up your phone to check the weather, and 40 minutes later find yourself watching a video about deep-sea fish, and your brain will have felt engaged the entire time, not because the content was meaningful, but because the seeking never stopped. The dopamine system doesn't evaluate. It doesn't weigh whether what you just consumed was worth your time. It just registers that the search is continuing and keeps the wanting alive. Your phone isn't making you happy. You already know that. You've felt the hollow, slightly dissatisfied sensation after a long scroll session. The vague sense that you've been somewhere but arrived nowhere. That feeling is real. It's your liking system failing to activate the way your wanting system promised it would. The craving was real. The reward never came. So what do you do with this? The research suggests that what the brain actually needs is not more stimulation, but genuine resolution. A walk with no destination and no earbuds. A meal without a screen. A conversation with no impulse to document it. Not because these things are more virtuous, but because they allow the dopamine system to actually return to baseline, to reset, to let the craving quiet, and when it does, something shifts. The quiet starts to feel tolerable again. Then interesting. Then sometimes profound. Your ancestors spent their entire lives with an extraordinary level of presence, not because they were more disciplined or more enlightened, because the variable reward machine hadn't been invented yet. Tonight, when your hand reaches for your phone without a thought, and it will, you'll know exactly what's happening. Not a failure of willpower. Just an ancient brain doing its ancient job in a world that learned to use that against you. The question is whether you reach back.